LeBron James, perhaps you've heard of him, posted this following picture with AD on his Instagram, including the caption, quote, "The weatherman says the weather is changing soon, and it predicts a thunderstorm is coming." So, Ramona, what's the latest on the Doppler radar for the Lakers superstar duo?
I mean, George, I know that you speak LeBron from all your years in South Beach, but I don't think it takes all that much sophistication to decode that.
Yeah.
Help is on the way. Help is on the way. AD, LeBron coming back. I thought AD would be back sooner. Looks like both of them are getting close.
Listen, the Lakers are 4-6. I'm kind of like okay with them thus far without AD and LeBron. They've done a pretty decent job, so you know, AD could be coming. Weatherman, check the weather real quick. Get on that app. We're in 2. Pat was ejected. Lika, what do you?
One of them.
I mean, of course, that wouldn't even be pass interference in the NFL. Like, the quarterback missed the player. He didn't actually really even hit him. I mean, he tried to hit him, and he kind of whiffed.
Here's the
Chris
thing.
sold it. It's okay.
Look, I would have thought flagrant 1. I'm a kid who grew up watching basketball in the 80s and 90s. No blood, no tech, okay?
Come on now.
All right, missed layups. Same. Pistons Kings. Check out this huge, I repeat, huge bang out by Mo Harkless.
Oh.
Come on, young man.
Whoa.
Ramona, you think he had beef with the rim there or what?
Oh, my goodness. That was New York City right there. Oh, but that was nice. I didn't catch that. Woo.
That was some vintage Mo Harkless. We saw a couple of those in Florida, maybe, right? We haven't seen that in a while.
Yeah. St. John's in the house.
Corey Joseph big in this game.
Yeah. So, listen, Mo has got a new lease on life. He's playing. He wasn't playing much with the Heat. Now he's playing with the Kings, and he's got an opportunity to show his skill set. So, next, miss footing. De'Aaron Fox casually bringing the ball up here, then hesitates here and blows by Dennis Smith Jr. Malika, have you ever seen a hezzy ankle breaker like this?
Oh.
I mean, I watch Kyrie every day, so you know, there's been stuff like that. You know, I see them in Barclays Center every once in a while, but this is what he does, right? This is what he does. That's filthy. That's gross. You should go apologize after that.
That's really embarrassing. You know what? You got to just pretend that you like pulled a quad out. You got to be like, oh, I'm sorry.
Get out of the wheelchair.
You didn't just blow by me like that. Ooh.
It'd be like, oh
I'm
man,
sorry,
my bad.
man.
Well, you know, it's funny you mentioned football earlier. That's what they do. The receiver always grabs the hamstring, right? In those situations. We got to take our cues from football.
Acting lessons.
Right there, for sure. Next, make creativity. Bucks Mavs, Notre Dame alum Pat Connaughton throws a pass that bounces off Maxi Kleber, but finds its way to Bobby Portis, who had a huge game. Ramona, you think this was intentional?
No, come on now. Bobby was just a little slow getting through there. And Bobby actually stops. Okay, you see, he stops before that pass comes in.
Yeah.
Instead of driving to the rim because it was a little late on the pass, and he's a little late diving to the rim. But okay, it works out. Okay, called it. Yeah.
Let Planet Pat take a little bit of credit for him. If he wants to say, yeah, I planned all that, just let him have it. Just let him have this one. Just be like, all right, sure, that's fine. We'll just go with that.
By the way, again, the Portis signing has been a really good one for the Bucks. I just want to make sure we reiterate that. All right, let's talk about the Brooklyn Nets. After missing 23 games with a hamstring injury, Kevin Durant came off the bench for only the second time in his career on Wednesday to drop a cool 17 points in just 19 minutes, where he was perfect from the field. So the Nets ended up routing the Pels and are currently a half game up on Philly for the top spot in the East. So let's take a look at KD and his absurd effectiveness when he's been healthy this season. Look at that. That's just crazy. So Malika, what's the Nets' plan here to get KD back to full strength?
Well, they were very cautious in bringing him back from his rehab into games, and they were slowly ramping him up, George. They're now going to be applying that same ramp-up kind of technique in games. So Kevin Durant told me that the reason why he came off the bench is that he is on a minutes restriction. He's going to be on a minutes restriction for the next couple of days, he said. And he also said that I'm going to be playing these weird minutes and in these weird rotations before I'm getting back to what you would normally see my workload as. But the reason why they didn't just bring him off the bench, he didn't play the entire first quarter and the first several minutes of the second quarter. They wanted to make sure that if they needed him in a close contest down the stretch, they wouldn't have burned all of his minutes, because as you said, they're only a half game up on Philadelphia. They know what's going on and what this stretch of the season means to them. They're eyeing those standings. They want the #1 seed, even if they don't talk about it publicly all the time. This is a team that hasn't shied away from the fact that they want to win. And so for the next few games, Kevin Durant is still going to be on a minutes restriction. He's still going to be playing in a different role maybe than he would normally play, but that's intentional so that they can make sure that they have him available if they get in a tight spot late in games.
That's an excellent point about not starting him so that he can be there at the end. Because I feel like I've done this show so many times where a star player's on a minutes restriction, they are not able to play in the fourth quarter or in overtime.
Right.
We go, oh, did the coach make a mistake? Should they have left him in there? Right?
Yeah.
Should they have ignored the minutes restriction? It's happened a few times with Zion last year.
Oh my God! Well, all we did was talk about that.
All
with
we
Zion.
did,
Yeah.
and that is a sophisticated way of approaching the minutes restriction, Brooklyn. Malika, I thought your report during the game where he's not there because he needed more space on the sideline to warm up.
That's
I mean,
funny.
that was crazy watching that game. Going like, when is he coming in?
Yeah.
When is Kevin Durant? Is he going to play? I mean, they really had a good poker face about if he was going to start, how many minutes he was going to play. Like that was, and I think it's easier to do in the in-person media access world. But obviously, this is what the standard is going to be for the Brooklyn Nets with all of their injured players because they've kind of entrusted it to the player all year long. You know, in the beginning with Kevin coming back, played a lot of minutes coming off that Achilles. Same thing with him and James when they had the hamstring injury. They played pretty quickly afterwards. Both re-injured it. Now the Brooklyn Nets are taking that Spursian view of things.
Sure. Now let me ask you this because, look, clearly this Nets team has more firepower than the team I'm going to talk about. But last year, the Clippers, right?
Yeah.
We talked a lot about they only played 12 games together, right? And then in the playoffs, it'll work itself out. They'll figure it out. And it didn't happen. So, Ramona, how worried are you about the whole they haven't played enough games together thing?
Yeah, there was a stat last night going around that they only played 7 games together, right? The only team that's won a championship where their top 2 players played with the fewest amount of games that they played together was 10.
Right.
Okay, 10, or the top 3 players was 10. So they need to get some on-court time, but these guys are so good.
Yeah.
And we forget, they have been playing together, played Team USA together. They know each other's games. They sort of play a positionless style of basketball. They're still experimenting with things. And the Eastern Conference is a place where the top 3 teams are here and everybody else is down here. I think they're going to be able to have some time to figure this out on the fly in the playoffs as long as they're all healthy.
So you're saying the conference is the biggest difference? Okay, Malika?
Well, and that's something that the Nets have said. Steve Nash has said to me, ideally, in an ideal world, we would have been playing all season long together. If some first-year teams don't win, sometimes it's for no reason other than the fact that they haven't been battle-tested together as a group. And so he's acutely aware of that. He knows that at this point, it's sort of like we're going to have to deal with what we're going to have to deal with because this is the hand that we've been dealt. I asked Kevin Durant about this after last game, and he said that he's pretty confident just based on the way that these guys all play. The fact that he said, we're all, like Ramona said, we're positionless players. We're going to be able to build chemistry quickly. James Harden is very key to that. But the thing about that 7 games is, remember, one of them was that strange game against Toronto where Kevin Durant was in the game, then out of the game, then in the game, and out of the game. That's like 6.5 games. And then also that was before LaMarcus Aldridge was added. That was before Blake Griffin was added. And we know that they are seeing a lot of minutes. They're key players right now. DeAndre Jordan is not currently playing for Brooklyn. LaMarcus Aldridge has come in for those minutes. So they're going to need some time. They've talked about that, especially because this is a team that doesn't really practice. They're learning together on the court. It's something that's in Steve Nash's mind. It's something that he said he wouldn't be concerned about. And I think that they've earned the benefit of the doubt here because of the firepower they have, because they've been able to answer most if not all questions thus far. They probably deserve saying, okay, they're going to have some time to figure this out. They're probably going to figure this out. But in an ideal world, it wouldn't have come down to this.
It's going to be fascinating. Certainly something to keep an eye on for sure, and we'll all do that. Malika, thank you for hanging out with us today. Great to see you. On the sidelines again last night. So, Ramona, I think the MVP talk for Chris Paul needs to get a little louder, okay? Is he in the conversation for you?
Oh, he's definitely in the conversation, but look, this thing about Chris's secret stuff, like you labeled it Chris's secret stuff? I mean, come on. What Chris has done is he went vegan last year and went to a plant-based diet. He is in incredible shape right now. He's turning back the hands of time. So, okay, there might be something in that juice, but,
Shout out to our guys, David Alexander, the trainer. There you go. And Donnie Ramon and all them. Welcome into The Jump. I'm George Sedano, in for our fearless leader, Rachel Nichols. Today, I'm joined by our senior writer, Ramona Shelburne, right here. And, of course, NBA reporter, Malika Andrews. So, coming up, Draymond Green's tweets on women receiving equal pay in sports drew some criticism from Megan Rapinoe. We've got Draymond's response. You're going to want to hear that. We'll react to that. But first, Paul George is, on a tear right now, and he's also one of the most polarizing players in the NBA. The seven-time All-Star is also one of the league's most talented players. He showed that once again last night, scoring a game-high 33 points against the Suns in a battle of Western Conference elites. After the game, he mentioned how the Suns were trash-talking all game. Let's take a listen to PG.
We focused on us. I don't know what that chirp is about. We focus on us. I don't care what they're doing over there. I don't care who they are or what they're doing. I'm locked in. They can do the chirping. I let them have it tonight. I just stayed in my zone, stayed in my place. I don't know. But again, I don't care what they're doing. We're focused on us over here. We're focused on getting better. Tonight was a fun matchup. And we appreciate the challenge.
Here's how PG is performing against the Suns this season. 36 points per game on, get this, 63% from the field, 74 from three, and 100 from the line. Those are incredible splits. Ramona, if that doesn't get the chirping to stop, then what the heck will it take?
Oh, it's never going to stop. Because the reason they're chirping at him, the reason they're trying to get under his skin is because there has been evidence that it has worked sometimes, right? So the only way to stop that is to just play through it. And Paul knows his rep in the league now. He knows what teams are trying to do to him. But by the way, any team with Chris Paul on it, that's kind of like in their DNA.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? Chris Paul the other day, right, in the overtime game, when, right, he was trying to high-five Donovan Mitchell.
Yep.
But this is what Paul George does. I mean, they're going to keep doing this to you, Paul, until you win. And the only way you can shut them up is just keep doing what you're doing.
Yep. That is absolutely right. That's the only time that this is going to stop is when they win a ring. And that's probably how it should be, right? Because when you look at what happened with the Clippers last year, they fell short of a lot of people's, including their own expectations. When something like that happens, plus what Ramona mentioned, that combined history of perhaps being able to have that work a little bit, it's not going to stop. And also, why should it stop? We want to see this. This is what NBA fans want to see. They want a little bit of back and forth. It's entertaining. It's fun, but that's exactly what Paul George should be saying. I'm going to let them do the chirping because they still, as amazing as those numbers are, I believe the Clippers know that they still have something to prove after what happened last year. So you're not going to see them being out there, being the person who's hitting first, right? They're going to be focusing in on what they need to do because they remember, they know what happened.
You know what's fascinating to me is, and Ramona, you probably were there too, but I remember covering those LeBron, Wade, Bosh teams, and they played the Pacers 3 times, okay? Once in the conference semis, twice in the conference finals. And Paul George was their best player. And we looked at him and said, my God, this kid is going to be incredible. He has the tragic injury. He comes back from the injury. And look, it took him a little bit. He has built his game back up. Like, his game is still incredible, especially when you consider the type of injury he's dealt with. I understand the playoff part of this, but I feel like he is this close to just breaking through. If he just can have those playoff performances that we saw 7 or 8 years ago, Ramona, I think that all this stuff will be dispelled.
Well, here's the thing about Paul. He's playing with an injured toe right now. And the only way that toe is going to get better is to rest. But they can't rest. And so he's out there playing night in and night out. And I think now they have one of the easiest schedules going forward in this last 20-something games of the year. So he may take a few games here to rest that toe as much as he can just to be ready for the playoffs. But he's been great. And the only way you clap back at people who are trying to get under your skin is to just go out and play. I don't even like that he acknowledged that they were chirping. I know that was the question that was asked of him, so he gave it an expansive answer. But to me, Paul George, just ignore it. Don't even make it a thing. Like, the idea that we're even talking about it means it's a thing.
Well, but don't you think, and I'll ask you, Malika, don't you think that stuff can fuel someone? Like, everyone's made up differently mentally. Maybe that's what he needs.
Sure, maybe. I mean, it's easy to get emotional when someone is bringing their emotions at you. I believe, he answered the question that he was asked, like Ramona said, but focusing on what they need to do, as I'm in New York City, so everything's loud, but focusing on what they need to do, that's exactly what they should be doing right now, because I know we don't want to overplay what happened in the playoffs last year. A lot of first-year teams, just based on the fact that they don't have expansive history together, fall short of their ultimate goal of winning the title. But Paul George came out and said a lot of that was on me. I wasn't quite right. I got to where I needed to be mentally. So if this is working for him right now, keep going, because clearly something's going right if he can continue to shoot and play the way that he has been, George.
Malika, keep going. Don't worry about the sound outside your window. It's okay. It's 2021. We all know what's going on. All right, let's get to
We're rolling with it.
Yeah, exactly. Let's get to Draymond Green, who has been the subject of controversy after his Twitter thread that wasn't actually a Twitter thread from March 27th, which in part, he blamed the women for making quote-unquote complaints rather than taking action over disparities in pay and investment in women's sports. Those comments drew the attention from the soccer world, where U.S. women's national team star Megan Rapinoe said that Draymond, quote, showed his whole ass in not even understanding the struggles of equal pay for women, and that it was unfortunate that an athlete in Green's position didn't have a more informed opinion. Green responded to Rapinoe and others yesterday. Let's take a listen.
I saw what Megan Rapinoe said, and she said it's unfortunate of his view, that's his view. And, I think it's unfortunate that she thinks it's unfortunate that that's my view, because at the end of the day, what Megan wants and what I want is the same thing. If we can both do something to move the needle to get to the end goal, great. I have no complaints with whatever it is that she wants to do, or any woman athlete wants to do, or anyone that's trying to help drive their cause and what they want to be done. It doesn't really matter to me how you get there. What does matter to me is that we get there. And so, I'm not going to sit here and condemn her comments back to me or what she's done. I'm in full support of what she's doing.
Malika, what's your reaction?
Well, here's the thing. I'm not going to pretend that I know Draymond incredibly well, but in the conversations that we have had, I believe that he genuinely wants to see change. I think he is coming from a good place. He just said that at the end of the day, he and Megan Rapinoe want the same thing. But inherently, the problem here, George, is that we're sitting up here talking about Megan Rapinoe versus Draymond Green, and that's taking away from what we should be talking about, which is equal pay. Here's the thing. This cannot be done. It is not on the oppressed to fix oppression. It has to be done with allyship, which is where someone like Draymond Green, a man, comes into a space that affects predominantly women. But the thing about being an ally is when you come into that space, you should be listening first, not talking first, because there is no one who understands better what these women are going through than these women. If you come into this space and say, okay, I'm going to listen, I'm going to take this feedback of what you've been living and what you've been experiencing, and then I'm going to then talk and then offer my ideas, perhaps even away from Twitter, because then it comes off like you're talking at somebody who's been going through something that's incredibly difficult for years and years and years, then maybe we can get to the point where women aren't making 80 cents to every dollar that a man makes. And by the way, that's white women. But we need to be listening first if you're coming into a space as an ally. We shouldn't even be talking about Draymond Green. The fact that we are, that's a distraction from what Megan Rapinoe is saying.
So, Malika, you and I have had many conversations about this in the past, or through text, whatever. Sometimes when you tweet something, you get so many reactions right away. And initially you think, did you even take the time to read the story? Or did you just see the tweet or the headline? Okay? And when I saw Draymond's tweets, I actually believe that he is on Rapinoe's side.
Right.
I think he wants to. I think his heart's in the right place. But I feel like he was watching the NCAA tournament. He had a gut level reaction. And instead of just catching up, he reacted.
Right.
And started tweeting, which is what people do on Twitter. Okay? Yeah. This is what they do on social media. Now, LeBron James is really good at getting asked a question. He says, you know what? I'm going to take some time and study that before I give you an answer.
Right.
I want to dig in and know what I'm talking about before I start popping up. It's good to be able to give hot takes. It's good to wade into things. I'm glad that he cares. But as somebody who has written a lot about women's
me
sports
too.
in the past, and I can name some of them.
And you played Division
Okay,
One.
Played Division One softball, but look, I write a lot about the WNBA.
Right.
I've written about the Sparks my entire career that I've been in Los Angeles. There's a lady named Michelle Vopel. She's incredible. She's been writing about women's basketball for ESPN for decades. She's great. Holly Rowe, did you hear that report she gave on Nadia Barnes having to go in there at halftime?
So
She's the coach at Arizona, pump breast milk for her infant child, and then go back out and coach in the national championship game. That's the kind of story that draws people into women's sports, and they are out there. Draymond just hasn't seen them. He hasn't gone looking for them. And I think that is what Megan and all the women athletes who have reacted to this have essentially said, which is, hey, these stories are out there. You just haven't been reading them. Go read them and then come talk to us.
I couldn't have said any of that better than you guys, obviously. But what I would say to you guys is this, and you guys both alluded to this about Twitter specifically. Herm Edwards worked at this network for a long time, okay? And he had one thing always to say. Don't press send, okay? Think about what you're going to write before you put it out there, right? And I think that you guys both alluded to that. And Herm, Herm, if you're watching, I still live by it, okay? I still live by it. I don't press send because
Take a breath.
You gotta know what you're talking about, because if not, you're going to get the response that you got if you're Draymond Green. I do think Draymond Green absolutely is on the side.
This story happened in the reverse order it should have.
Yes.
Draymond became interested in the tournament. Draymond tweeted about the tournament without really knowing a lot of what he needs to know.
So
now he knows what he needs to know because he heard Megan Rapinoe, he heard Chiney Ogwumike, he heard a lot of women athletes who have jumped in here and said, hey, know what, okay? So now he knows, and he gave a very nice, contrite press conference yesterday, and I believe him.
Momo, what needs to happen now? With Draymond, do you reach out to Megan? How do you make this work?
You know what? I think everyone's okay. I think we all had the same reaction. If you notice the way the story played out, the first day he started tweeting about it, everybody kind of just was soft playing it. They didn't necessarily have this gut level emotional reaction. Then he kind of doubled down on it and doubled down again.
He tweeted a lot.
And it kept going. And we were like, hey, somebody should get in your ear and tell you what's up. Right? And now that they have, and I think there's some really good public relations people up there in Golden State that have worked in both the NBA and the WNBA, I want to give them credit, that have
some of the best
talked to him about it. And he understands now. So it would have been better if all that would have happened beforehand. But the fact that we've spent, 3 weeks now talking about this?
Yeah. March 27th was a long time ago.
Yeah, it's probably a net positive. Because a lot of people learned along with Draymond.
All right.